E3 2019 has come and gone, and there were a lot of things that happened that create excitement and energy around what gaming has to offer in the next few years. Games like Cyberpunk 2077, Doom Eternal, Dying Light 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and the upcoming sequel to Breath of the Wild all had fans excited about what we'll be able to play in the future. Not everything was roses though, as some announcements, moments, and omissions left fans wondering where the magic of E3 had gone. While we had a great time attending E3 this year, there were certainly some moments that had us wishing for more. I'm Tyler from the Gaming Hub, and these are the most disappointing things from E3 2019 as far as we're concerned. Before we begin though, please like and share the video as it helps us out a ton, and hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss new content from us. Also, please subscribe to the Gaming Hub podcast on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on so you never miss the latest in gaming news and reviews on our flagship show. So let's start with the obvious one, the fact that Sony and Activision weren't at E3 this year. It's like when you get the whole family together for Christmas and a couple family members can't make it from across the country or just don't come. Sony decided to skip E3 2019 in favor of more direct communication with their fans through State of Play streams that have occurred a couple times throughout 2019 already. Despite the fact that PlayStation's leadership didn't feel like they had enough new content to show at this year's E3 to make attending worth it, their absence did leave a void in the event. It just feels more special when everyone's there. Phil Spencer agreed, stating he hopes Sony, Activision, and Electronic Arts come back into the E3 fold next year. As for Activision, they did have behind closed door showings of Call of Duty Modern Warfare at E3 this year for media, but they did not have a booth on the show floor for the first time in many years. Perhaps this was somewhat due to their relationship with Bungie and Destiny being severed this year, along with the fact that Call of Duty Modern Warfare was announced later than it normally is each year. Additionally, with the sensitive nature of the new Call of Duty game, it's possible that Activision and Infinity Ward wanted to have kind of a more controlled environment to show the game so they could get their messaging on point and kind of control that. Either way, I think the event suffers without one of the biggest publishers in gaming not at E3 in a prominent way. Up next, we didn't really see a lot of gameplay at E3 this year, and that has a lot of people not too happy. So we saw a lot of CG trailers at E3 in 2019, and many of them look great, but it's pretty easy to make a CG trailer look great. Fans everywhere were objecting to the lack of gameplay at the event this year, and I'm torn on whether or not I'm as upset about it. I'll get to my point on that in just a second. But was it fair to be upset that we got virtually no gameplay from games that are coming pretty soon, like Gears 5? I'd say yes to that. At first, I was concerned that there was no gameplay shown. The reality is they're saving that so they have something to show at Gamescom in August, but that doesn't change the fact that gamers were a little justified to be dissatisfied not seeing any campaign gameplay being shown from a game that's coming in the first part of September. We saw extended gameplay of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Doom Eternal, and Watch Dogs Legion during the conferences this year. Those all looked great, in my opinion, but sadly that was kind of about it. So why didn't we see any gameplay from other games? Well, here's the flip side of the argument. Most of the games that fans were upset about not seeing gameplay for, games like Halo Infinite, Ghostwire Tokyo, Avengers, Deathloop, and more, well, they're not being released for at least over a year. The conferences are about building hype, and they're designed to move quickly. I bet you can think of a time that you were watching an E3 briefing in the past and felt bored in the middle of a 10-minute gameplay demo. They slowed down the pace and caused some gamers to lose interest, and these companies know that. Secondly, and more importantly, too many fans and so-called commentators today will review and judge alpha gameplay as if it's what we're going to get on release day. Then, they take to social media or make a video saying the game is terrible when it's still over a year away from being done. It's not hard to understand why companies don't show more alpha gameplay when it's judged that way by individuals who want clicks and views. Look at Jedi Fallen Order. Here's a game where we actually saw gameplay, and there are people out there trashing the game saying it's just Star Wars Uncharted and that it looks boring. They still have 6 months to release more details about the game, show us more gameplay, all that, and it's being judged as if the game is what we saw and nothing more. I don't blame companies for being more cautious with it. Still, it's disappointing to not see more gameplay during the briefings. But I bet E3 2020 will have a lot more gameplay as we prepare for the start of the next generation next year. Ultimately, though, I think most fans are disappointed with E3 this year because, let's face it, the conferences weren't all that great. There were a couple exceptions to that. I personally thought Microsoft did a good job, and I know a lot of people didn't. But Nintendo's was great too, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second, but I think the overall disappointment comes down to a couple of things. One, no, there wasn't a lot of gameplay shown. There was a lot of CG trailers, all that type of thing. But two, I think that we as fans are partly to blame for our own disappointment. We're not to blame for, them not showing a whole lot, but we are partly to blame for our own disappointment. And why? Because we kind of get an idea in our head that we want to see everything that these companies have ever thought about working on all at once right now. And not keep in mind that, they have PR divisions and things like that plan out, map out when they're going to release details about something. And the reality is next year, Microsoft, Sony are going to announce brand new consoles, and, well, not announce, they already did, but they'll be really putting a lot of detail behind it and really building the hype behind them next June at E3 and getting ready to have them on store shelves in probably the fall, probably November, maybe a little bit earlier. But it's going to be next year about building that hype, and if they show us things like Fable 4, other games that they're working on from these new studios, in Microsoft's case, if they show us that this year, then when they show us that next year, the fan response is just going to be, we've seen that already. What do you have that's new? So, in a way, we as fans put them in a position where they can't win. And that's probably not fair. But anyway, Microsoft, I think, was pretty good. The CD Projekt Red moment with Keanu Reeves was awesome. That was so much fun to actually be there and see that happen. That there is something to be said, though, for the fact that they just didn't show a lot of gameplay, and that's fair. For things like The Outer Worlds, which is coming out in just a couple of months, Gears 5 coming out in a month and a half, games like that. Also, I was pretty disappointed with Ori's release date, to be honest with you. I thought that would be sooner, and to see it not be till early next year was kind of disappointing. Overall, though, I thought Microsoft was good. I thought Nintendo was great. Seeing more about the games that are on the way, and then getting that bombshell at the end with the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Awesome. So, that I think is the good stuff. But Bethesda, what are you doing? I love you, Bethesda, I do, but man, these last couple of years have been rough. They have, and I don't know how to fix that. I think Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop are both really good steps in that direction. Obviously, we're going to start to see, stuff from the new Elder Scrolls game and Starfield probably next year. I think there's a good reason they didn't show it this year. They shouldn't have shown it this year. But all the mobile games, come on. That just drug it down, and, we were there. I know there's been some talk about people being paid off to cheer in the crowd. That wasn't the case, at least not from what we could see actually being in the stands. There were just a few individual fans that were just really excited, especially for ESO. But Bethesda, not much gameplay at all, except for Doom. The Doom gameplay looked awesome, but other than that, I didn't really see the reason to have a briefing. And Ubisoft. Don't know what to say there, except that it was bad. And there are games that Ubisoft makes that I'm so looking forward to, like Skull and Bones. I'm still a little bummed that they got delayed again. I get it. I wanted to make a great game without, working people into the ground, but I'd like to see that game sometime soon-ish. And have that not be at E3, I think, hurt their show. Too much Tom Clancy. Just way too much of that. I don't... They kind of fell into the EA trap, where EA spends too much time in their briefing on sports games. And I love sports games, but not everybody does. And a lot of people don't. And I think that hurts them. And I think Ubisoft did the same thing here with the Clancy games. Too much time on them. people checked out and they just didn't enjoy it. Speaking of EA, I don't think EA Play this year was as bad as some people do. I think it was great to have it split up into half-hour segments. I thought the Jedi Fallen Order section was great. And the reality is that this year, if you're not excited about Madden or FIFA, you don't have to watch it. It's not in the middle of an hour and a half briefing that everybody sits down to watch. So if you're not into that, you can watch something else or do something else at that point. If you are excited about that, you know exactly when to tune in to see it. So I thought that was fine. I know some people call it boring. I get it. The Anthem part was just uncomfortable. I don't know what they're going to do with that game to bring it back. I still say I love the gameplay and the flying in the game, but the story is bad and the end game is atrocious. So I don't know what you do to bring people back. I actually uninstalled the game, so I don't plan on going back to it. But the briefings though were rough. Devolver Digital, pretty good. Didn't mind theirs at all. And Square's wasn't bad. I know Steven on our show really loved Square's briefing, and there's been mixed reaction on it. For me, it was in the bottom half. For him, I think he had maybe even number 1 or number 2. But it was fine. It was much better than last year's. We'll put it that way. So, but the briefings overall pretty shaky, not real good. And I think that's ultimately the reason that people were disappointed in E3. So, not having much gameplay there, not showing things that I think the E3 crowd that tunes into it want to see. And, just not a whole lot of new games as we're all kind of bracing for next gen. That just kind of resulted in being a disappointing thing for a lot of people. So, for me though, E3 was still pretty good this year, and I enjoyed it. It was our first time going. We had a fantastic time. It was so much fun. Got to meet so many cool people, from people that do videos here on YouTube to other podcasters too, and just personalities and developers, people like that work on the games that we love to play. So that was all really fun, and can't wait to go back next year. So that's gonna do it for this video, and this has been kind of our biggest disappointments, our sort of worst of E3 2019. Before we go though, I just want to remind you again to please like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet, share the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video when we put one up. Also, if you haven't yet, head on over to your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to the Gaming Hub podcast, and give us a listen every week. We'd love to have you become part of the community. All right. That's it. This is, again, Tyler from the Gaming Hub. This was our worst of E3 2019, and we'll talk to you soon.